All right, we're in it. Yeah, we'll let the people file in, but there's no better way to kick off this show than just like we're storming out of the gates tonight. Like it's last week of the regular season conference tournament week, but above all, an absolute heartbreaking loss for the Purdue Boilermakers tonight. And Purdue Nation's finest, Jacob, has some strong words for a lot of the parties that were involved in the outcome of tonight's game. So there's no better way to start. 88-80, the Fighting Illini live to fight another day, and the Boilermakers continue their skid. But Jacob has some strong words for Illinois, for the officiating crew. So let's get into it, and let me get these links tweeted out because the people are going to want to see this.
I'm not that actually mad about Purdue losing.
You're not
we
mad.
Didn't shoot. I'm not mad at Illinois. I am mad at the officiating in this game. I will say that. It's been atrocious. Every game I've watched Jeffrey Anderson as a referee this year has been absolutely atrocious.
Jeffrey Anderson is the third highest rated official in the country.
I think he should never ref a game again. I think he's throwing games. I think the FBI needs to investigate him for fraud, man. It's like it's fraud. Ridiculous. Yeah, like he's throwing games. What's the NBA ref's name?
Tim Donnie.
Tim Donnie. Yeah, he's in that class, I think. Tonight,
Jeffrey Anderson is not a Tim Donahue level ref.
Yeah. He's in the same boat. Jeffrey Anderson's in the same boat as Ted Valentine, Courtney Green, Carl Hess. What's the other guys?
So Jeffrey Anderson
Ed
also
Hightower.
Jeffrey Anderson did ref the Auburn Purdue game earlier this year. Trying to see if he did any other. He did Purdue Iowa at Iowa. Let me see any other Purdue games he's done. He did the Purdue Maryland game at Mackey. And let's see, I think that's all the Purdue he's done this year. So yeah, so Purdue actually was pretty good with Jeffrey Anderson and his high knees, but
so to be clear, Jacob, not a high knee guy.
I am not. Absolutely not. If Illinois shot great, Purdue didn't shoot great the last little bit of the game, but like the ref, like it was so inconsistent. Like you'd have a ticky-tack call on one end, and the other end there'd be no call. When Illinois like shoved somebody, there'd be no call. Not to mention the egregious technical foul. It wasn't even obvious that he hung on the rim that long. You know, like he looked back to see if someone was there and he let go. Like I don't understand. It's like they rewarded Illinois for doing nothing, you know.
The hanging on the rim one is always tough. I do agree with you there because, I mean, like, what do you want, the guy to just come down and land on other people? Like,
and somebody could have undercut him, you know? Like, it's a rivalry game. Someone easily could have undercut him, and he could have got hurt, you know? Let players protect themselves. So, I mean, it's a rough loss, but it's a road game. So, I'm not, like, super mad. I'm just mad at the inconsistent referee play.
You seem mad. That does not seem like an evaluation of your feelings.
I'm just mad at Jeffrey Anderson. Also,
so you are mad.
Brad Underwood didn't coach a good game. I think the refs gave the game to Illinois pretty much. That's my assessment.
I don't know. I mean, I don't think Purdue defended particularly well this game, for one. I mean, again, this is another case of, can Purdue get any help besides Trey Coffin-Wren and Braden Smith? Braden Smith, I thought that was one of his better games. I mean, he was one rebound shy of a triple-double. Thought he was really good. But Yeah, just again, like Trey Coffin for as good as he is on offense, he cannot defend. Like a lot of these guys just really struggled on the defensive end. And credit Illinois, they attacked them and they shot well enough. They didn't take a super obnoxious amount of threes, but they made 11 of them. Yaka Jonas made a big one down the stretch, and yeah, Trey White for Illinois, just unbelievable game by him. He was probably player of the game there, and yeah, Will Riley, as you alluded to earlier, Super Bowl type performance from Will Riley there at Illinois to really overcome what was not a great Yaka Jonas game for him tonight. But yeah, I mean, Illinois outscored Purdue by 10 in the second half, so I
Jacob,
feel
is
like
there
the right team probably won tonight.
Is there any blame to Purdue for scoring 1 point in the last 5 minutes?
I mean,
Any
the
blame?
refs. I mean, the refs didn't let them. I mean, they could have called fouls on the other end and actually called fouls on Illinois when they mugged Purdue in the paint. That's why we didn't score.
So we can't let him get ragged on for this theory all the time here. So we got to say, like, Illinois did shoot 25 free throws to Purdue's 13. So there was a big disparity in free throw shooting. We did have Cam Heide fouled out in 17 minutes of basketball. So, yes, I understand there's a bit of a ref bias. Now, I do think, if you look at the shot charts and whatnot, I think Illinois kind of positioned themselves fairly well to get those calls. It was basically either Trey Coffin down low or like Braden Smith navigating through the screens for Purdue. So they didn't really attack as probably well as what they could have to get to line more. But yeah, I think tonight Illinois might have been just like they had a much more balanced performance. As we talked about, they got contributions from really just all their starters, and yeah, tonight they were probably the better team. If that game's played at Mackey, it's probably maybe a different story. But yeah, tonight Illinois deserved to win that one. They really had to have that one, kind of. So yeah, credit to them. That's a big win there before Big Ten tournament play, and Purdue, not really sure what to do with them, but we'll see what happens next few days here.
I know, Matt.
Can we get an assessment of Boiler Nation going into the Big Ten tournament?
I think we're just mad we didn't get a double bye. To be honest.
Sure. Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, that would have been huge for them, and that was something to play for sure.
I know, even though we weren't the best Big Ten team, getting that double bye would have helped get the team rested for that stretch run in the Big Ten tournament. Now we're going to be playing on Thursday. So I know, Matt, you brought up a good point with our defense. I mean, that's the issue. I wouldn't say it was our scoring. Our defense just didn't – we let Illinois get the shots they wanted, and then added on the refs kind of calling an inconsistent game. That kind of just threw everything out of whack after we got up like 10 points. And that just kind of we let the refs dictate the game.
Yeah, I think they just need to be a little more aggressive there. Trey Coffin, CJ Cox, and Fletcher Lawyer were the only Purdue players to attempt free throws tonight. Braden Smith did not attempt a single one. For as good of a game as he played, and for as good of a season as he's had, probably should be more aggressive in those moments. So we'll see. I mean, he was in a tough spot. Illinois was going under all the screens. So, like, anytime you go under screen against Braden Smith, it's going to be he's going to shoot that ball. So just, wasn't his best shooting performance, but I mean, he, for someone who played all 40 minutes and just really gave them everything, yeah, he probably deserved better from but he just, they just didn't get the effort from, the bench. Obviously, we've talked about that before being an issue, the depth. And, defensively, just not good enough.
Because I know tonight, last year at Illinois, he hit a lot of clutch shots. He just never had that clutch shot there at the end that he needed to, and he kept taking it and just had that deer in the headlights shot. Kind of.
I mean, Braden Smith, he led Purdue in rebounds tonight. Like, he did everything. Like, just so it's a lot to ask of him to really just rebound the ball as well as he did on one end and then, try and get them a bucket on another. So
really good performance by TKR too. Like
Yeah.
obviously not defensively, but he had a great game.
He had a great game. I wish he wouldn't have turned that ball over there at the end. That kind of cost us anything because it kind of turned it into a 3-throw battle at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Disappointing loss for Purdue. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add, but does that do it for the angry Purdue fan segment? Do you have anything else you need to get out?
I think I got it all out pretty good.
Yeah, I'm sure the big frustration, as Jacob said before, is mostly with like the fact that they are not getting double bye, and the teams ahead of them, Michigan State obviously, and then like Michigan, they lost that game at Michigan that they feel they probably should have won. Maryland's ahead of them, Wisconsin's ahead of them. They probably feel that going into the season, I would probably guess that they would have hoped to be in that double bye territory ahead of a couple of those teams. So I think that's probably what I would assume is the biggest level of frustration going into Big Ten tournament play. And perhaps, maybe their seeding as well, could be something that could be affected by Big Ten tournament play if they went out early. We've seen in the past that these conference tournaments don't always necessarily mean like great performance doesn't equal higher seed. But your seeding can kind of be affected from, kind of mediocrity in those plays or in those situations. So yeah, right now it's kind of the difference between like Purdue being a 4 or 5 or being a 3 seed. So that, can be a big deal because it's proven to be kind of, an issue for Matt Painter teams in the past. So they're setting themselves up to be ripe for the 5-12 game or 4-13 or 6-11 territory. So sure, they feel a little pressure to string together some good games here.
I do know one thing I will mention in that good territory for Purdue. The other night against Rutgers, took care of business. Hit Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer. I think the Splash Brothers somehow transferred their powers to him the other night. Instead of the Splash Bros, it was the Amish Bros. They hit, I think, how many threes did they hit each? Let me check. I know we had 18 threes as a team. Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer both had 7 threes apiece.
Yeah. And sadly for Rutgers, got to win tomorrow to make Big Ten tournament play.
Yeah, that whole dynamic of the conferences eliminating teams from the conference tournament now is really interesting because that's kind of why you're seeing like the Jay Lucas situation with what's happening because Miami season's over tomorrow. So like they're moving on. So it's got like Jay Lucas that's one of the stories we definitely need to talk about from this week. But yeah, Jay Lucas is going to be the next coach at Miami, and like I said, what's interesting about it is he's leaving Duke after the North Carolina game tomorrow. He will not be staying for postseason play. Like he's getting on the road and bringing the Boozer twins with him, I'm sure, over to Miami. But you just bring that up, and that situation that's going to be a more common thing, and I feel like a negative effect of these conferences eliminating teams from the league tournaments now.
I honestly like it because if you didn't perform, usually those teams don't, at those bottom 3 or 4 teams, don't go on runs. It's kind of the teams closer to the mid-tier that it's kind of on the bubble, an NC State or someone like that over a team like Washington or someone like that hasn't, or Miami that just kind of isn't in the groove of things, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's very similar to college football now, where you see team seasons being over just before bowl season, and then that's when a lot of the mayhem happens, coaching changes
Mhm.
happen. So it's pretty similar to the college game in that way, for football, that is. And yeah, I mean, NC State last year would have made ACC tournament play, but it would have been close. It was barely. I think they made it by a game in that scenario. So, um, there are always going to be some unintended consequences of that. But some of these teams, they might give players
Mhm.
you know, step up, a chance to get going in the portal. For coaches, I do think that makes things a little more difficult. If one of these teams, is eliminated, if Washington tomorrow had a coaching vacancy and, who knows, they called up whichever coach, like a mid-major coach or whoever that was still playing, that could, make for some difficulty. It's never been seen that a coach is like coach. We've seen it in bowl games in college football where coaches have like the interim coach coaches the bowl game type thing. We've never really seen that in basketball before.
Yeah, I think the
So
Jay Lucas one is the first one I can think of like that.
yeah, so it would be, yeah, that makes for a very like weird scenario, for sure, especially if that team is like they have tournament aspirations. It would, yeah, it would make for some pretty like uncomfortable times there. So yeah, I mean, if Indiana tomorrow decided they wanted to, hire Eric Olin to be their head coach from UC San Diego, and he took the job and just left San Diego, which is probably going to be an NCAA tournament team, that would be kind of unheard of. So I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope like that kind of stuff is unaffected, and that's not something we see like how you do in college football. But yeah, so I think eliminating some of those teams, as you said before, some of those teams are just so bad. Like Miami should probably stop playing now. Like they should have stopped playing like a while ago. Their season's been over for a while. So yeah, not much else to look forward to there besides this coaching change, and they're definitely going to recruit better, because Jai Lucas ran a lot of the recruiting that went on at Duke. So best they get a head start there.
Yeah. Well, back to some game action from the week. I figured the after Purdue we had to get that out of the way, but
Mhm.
definitely the biggest game of the week and story of the week was Wednesday night, Florida 99, Alabama 94. Huge win for the Gators. That probably I think the one seeds are probably pretty firm now. I think it's Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida should be the one seeds. I don't think there's going to be much dispute there between those four. I would be surprised to see that not be the 4-1 seeds at this point. And, Florida was really able to solidify that on Wednesday with that win. But Alex Condon had the best game of his college career. He was
Mhm.
incredible on Wednesday night. And it was the first half on the road that the Gators were down most of the first half and down early in the second half, and they really just took control of that game. You saw Bama's defensive issues rear their head again. I mean, Florida just absolutely dominated on the glass in this game, and that was the difference in that one. And Clayton didn't have his most efficient night, but he finished with 22. And yeah, Condon was out of his mind, 27 points, 10 rebounds. Um, yeah, and you saw Bama struggle to shoot it again from like then the second half. The 3-pointers just weren't falling for them, and obviously with their style play, that's not a recipe for success for them. But yeah, Bama is now they've lost 2 in a row, and they go to Auburn tomorrow in a huge one. So they're in a little bit of a skid. And yeah, like I said, these last 2 losses were games they really needed if they wanted to get a 1 seed, and probably unless they go on an insane run in the SEC championship and we see Florida go down early, maybe uh, probably eliminates Bama from the 1 seed competition. But yeah, that was a huge one on Wednesday night, and the Gators really, like I said, solidified themselves as a 1 seed, and I think moreover solidify themselves as for anybody who's been sleeping on them and not paying attention to Florida, because I definitely think the hype for Florida hasn't been there as much as Auburn and Alabama and some of these other teams in the SEC. But if people aren't paying attention to them on the national radar as a national championship contender, they are really, really good. And they're in that. I mean, they have wins at Auburn, at Alabama, a 30-point win against Tennessee. Yeah, they've really taken care of business in SEC play and knocked out those top teams and shown that they are they're a true national championship contender. And yeah, I think the Gators are kind of the story of the week this week. So we'll talk about that one a little bit.
Yeah, they are for sure. I mean, I do think Florida's best is better than maybe like any team in the country when they're firing on all cylinders. I mean, they are just outstanding on the offensive glass in particular. They dominate that area, and they're just like exceptionally well balanced. Just the combination of just really efficient offense, really efficient defense, really, really high level rebounding. They're not like really only nitpick you can make is that, they're not a great free throw shooting team. They, don't turn you over a ton on defense, but they do it enough to the point where, they still get enough turnovers per game that, make them, that's an area they can beat you on defense. But yeah, just player for player, they are extremely deep. They're well coached. They run some great stuff offensively. So yeah, Condon was out of his mind, as you mentioned.
Best game
Clayton,
of his college career.
Yeah, 100%. He was just out of control good. And if he's given them that level of play, that's been the difference maker. I mean, for him to, go 27-10 and two of those blocks, like the one block he had on Grant Nelson was like pro level. That was, that was exceptional. Not much else you could say there. So if he's playing at that level, there aren't very many bigs, or really teams in the country besides Auburn and Duke that can match what they have. They go 9-10 deep, and all those guys can play. They can give them something.
And they're a team that can really get up and down and score it, and they are not scared to, get after it on the glass and get physical with you. And it's like if they end up in a matchup with a grinder like Houston, it's like they're not necessarily. I don't think Florida's necessarily in a situation where Florida that's going to be like a big clash of styles, like because I think Florida is good enough defensively that if they get kind of drugged down into a game like that, like they can go toe to toe with a physical team that likes to slow the game down. Like they have the guys and the size, the rebounding, the physicality to do that, and also at the same time can shoot it out of their minds against a team like Alabama and a team like Auburn, like we've seen them do this year.
Yeah, so they are one of those teams that like the style does not affect what they want to do in a game. I mean, they have manhandled Tennessee. They've held Tennessee to 43 points in a game. So they can play that tempo. Obviously, they had the loss at Tennessee. They weren't at full strength that game. They shot that poorly. But, I mean, 1 week later, they go to Auburn and win, at a tempo that Auburn was pretty comfortable playing with. So, yeah, they are an extremely dangerous team. Todd Golden's one of the best coaches in the country. That's a team program that is just built to win in March. They have guys who've done it before. And yeah, I mean, Walter Clayton alone, just really, really good guard, does not get his due, gets overshadowed a lot because of, how Auburn has played this year and the Mark Sears factor. So Florida has some really good guards that just do not get enough credit. But yeah, that's just a really, really well-balanced team. I would be shocked if anyone beat them before the second weekend. It would be one of those teams that like just take it to the bank. They should be 1 seed. The non-conference is not, perhaps maybe 1 seed level, but just what they've done in conference alone should be enough to get them to a 1 seed. And when they get there, I just don't see any of those teams that are like on the 8-9 line that can really compete with this level of team. Like Florida would be a really tough matchup for UConn. Florida would be a really tough matchup for Gonzaga. It would, they can just they're one of those teams that every time Florida plays someone, the other team has to adapt to them, not the other way around. It's never been the other way around in any game they played. And every game they played, the games they've lost, they have adjusted and put themselves in position to win every time. Like Georgia had that unbelievable first half against them. Florida came back, and had they just made a couple more free throws, stolen a couple more possessions, they would have won that game. So yeah, Florida's unbelievably dangerous. They are the best team in the country that nobody talks about as much as they should. Certainly not in the mainstream. So yeah, I don't know if it's possible for a team to be mainstream underrated going into SEC tournament play or NCAA tournament play, but that's kind of the situation here. I don't think enough people have really paid much attention to them. I think people are like, oh, that was a fluke game at Auburn. That was a fluke game at Bama. That was a fluke game. After a while, it's just they are just that good. So, yeah, really, really impressive team there. And they are just one of those teams that is built for March every way.
Yeah, and they obviously they had to do a lot in SEC play to make up for, as you mentioned, the poor non-conference, and I think they've done that and more than you even could ask for with the big wins they've gotten on the road. And for that voice crack, for that reason, like I think that win in Alabama is the win they really needed that solidifies them as a 1 seed. As long as I think Florida's in a position where if they win tomorrow and then they go to Nashville and win one game, I think they're a lock for a 1 seed. Whatever happens the rest of the SEC tournament, I think they get one there, they're good. Even if they don't get one there, they should I think it would take something really surprising for Auburn, Houston, Duke, and Florida to not be the 1 seeds at this point. I think all four of those teams have really solidified themselves as the top four.
I think so too. Florida has that offensive ability that the other teams on the 1 seed line don't have. Of course, beating Alabama is a much bigger win than losing to Ole Miss on the road. I think that knocked Tennessee from contention for a 1 seed. We'll kind of get into that game here in a minute, but I didn't really watch much of this game on Wednesday night, but it looks like Walter Clayton, Alex Condon, as you'd mentioned. Mark Sears didn't shoot great from three, but still scored a lot. It was the typical Alabama game,
That's what killed Alabama is they could not get they couldn't pray for a three to fall in the second half. It just they came out shooting it great in the first half and had control of this game for probably the first 25 minutes, and then they just down the stretch there in the second half it just fell apart for them, and they just got Alabama defended pretty well for the first half or so of this game too, and then it just fell apart for them. They got dominated on the glass. They couldn't make a three. They couldn't stop Florida. Florida was making everything. It was just a real. It sounds like you're taking away credit from Florida by saying this, but it was a real meltdown by Alabama in that second half because the first 20, 25 minutes of that game was a game that Alabama certainly should have had and looked like it was going their way and they were in control of. And then Florida just took this thing over, and Alabama couldn't knock down a three to save their lives.
Yeah, for sure. It was, Grant Nelson's kind of struggled recently. He was a huge piece of their Final Four team, and he just has shot the ball poorly.
He had three bunnies right at the rim. Down the stretch that he missed, two or three from what I remember. It was a couple days ago, but he had a few bunnies that if he was able to knock those easy ones down, really could have changed the game.
Yeah, and he's struggled a bit, but it's been the guards for Bama recently. Phylon had one of his better games of the season. Obviously, Sears had 30. So, yeah, they definitely are going to need a little more from their front court. if they want to go deep this year. Obviously, it's going to be pretty matchup driven depending on who they see. But yeah, I mean, I would say, Saturday is a pretty make or break 1 seed type of game for them, unless they go to win the SEC tournament or they beat Tennessee or Florida or Auburn in the SEC tournament. I would say the road for them getting a 1 seed is an uphill climb right now.
And it's just tough. Even if they beat if they win at Auburn tomorrow, it's that's obviously a great win, but who would they knock off the 1 line at that point? Does that win at Auburn, would that vault them back over Florida onto the 1 line? Because Florida has to win at Auburn as well. So it's kind of like
I think you would on that.
Yeah,
I think at that point you would go based on. I think the conference tournament would be, because right now Bama has the non-conference stuff over Florida. I think the biggest thing Florida has going over Bama right now is the eye test stuff. I don't think anyone in their right mind who's watched those two teams play, especially the most recent couple weeks here, Florida is just definitively, in my opinion, a better team than Bama. I don't think that, anyone who really watches the sport really, when it comes down to the point where you're yeah, Bama really just needs to get hot to beat this team. That's the only way they're going to beat him. Florida's better than them. So I think eye test helps them. I think conference play helps them a lot. Yeah, unless Bama turns around and, has a pretty impressive SEC tournament run. I don't want to say deep run, because I don't think a deep run will help them as much as they will probably need to beat Florida, Tennessee, Auburn. So yeah, it's a tough spot. It kind of frustrates me, not to cape up for Bama here, but you kind of wish that oh yeah, well, if Duke played the SEC schedule, would they be in the 1 seed conversation type thing? And Houston and Duke have obviously earned that, but yeah, it's gonna be brutal for whoever whether it's Tennessee, Florida, Bama to be on the 2 line. That's going to be one of the better 2 seeds in recent memory. Who didn't get a 1. So,
and what Duke has, you mentioned Duke, and obviously the strength of schedule is not there for them. Yes, and I hate to defend Duke because I don't like Duke, but the reason Duke is solid, even though they might not have the big wins and resumes metrics that the other teams do, is number one, they are number 1 in all the predictives right now. The predictives love them. That actually,
yeah, the advanced stats. I mean, Duke tests off the charts, net ratings off the charts. And it's point differentials off the charts. They certainly are, and they deserve it. They deserve it. I'm not saying that, but yeah, it's just any other year. I think this version of Tennessee or Bama or Florida is certainly a 1, but this year they're going to be it's going to be rough. That whoever's region those teams fall into, that's going to be a really tough draw for any of those 1 seeds there. So makes for a good tournament product. But yeah, I'm sure one of those teams will be asking themselves what more do we have to do type of thing to get a 1. But yeah, that's just how it works, and it speaks to the strength of the top of the sport right now, which is good. Everybody wins in that situation.
And you mentioned going on an SEC tournament run to potentially help them, and it's we talked about this a little bit last week, but the problem with that is at that point, if they go on an SEC tournament run and they win an SEC championship at 2:00 on Sunday, the hay's kind of already in the barn at that point. We've seen numerous times where teams from the Big Ten and SEC and who else ends on Sunday? I think the American ends on Sunday too.
Yeah.
Those conference tournaments that end on Sunday, teams don't get enough of a bump from, which I do think is a problem. I'm not saying that's right, but it's the committee doesn't want to make adjustments based off what happens on Sunday because they kind of already have the bracket done and sealed at that point.
I mean, I don't think it will be a huge jump. I mean, really, you're only talking 1 seed line. So you're only talking it's not going to be that huge of a jump anyway if they do take the 1 line. I mean, obviously, if Mississippi State comes out and just rattles off just 5 straight howlers of games here that vault their seeding, that's a different conversation.
Well, because like that's what Auburn did last year, and like Auburn, we didn't really get rewarded for their SEC tournament
Sure.
run last
I
year.
do think the conference is better this year for sure. I think it means, I think obviously everyone can probably agree the SEC tournament might be a little more of a gauntlet this year than what it's been in previous years.
Certainly.
And yeah, I do think Auburn, obviously this has been talked about, I'm sure, among a lot in Auburn circles. Non-conference this year for Auburn is astronomically better than it was last year. I think
no doubt
that probably held them up a little bit. But yeah, we've seen all the time, like Michigan State in 2016, they had a nice run to win the Big Ten tournament. They got seeded as a 2 when, I mean, most people, myself included, thought they should have been a 1 seed. Ironically, they ended up getting beat by Middle Tennessee State that year as a 15 seed. But yeah, it's weird. The criteria is not really linear with that stuff. I do think they probably have like a contingency for if most of these teams end up winning, and how they win obviously matters as well. So yeah, I don't think the seeding will really particularly change. I would say if I were on that committee, I would probably have Auburn, Duke, Florida, Houston would probably be my 4-1 seeds if I were in that room.
Yeah, and it feels like because another team in that boat, and it's like it kind of shows how stacked the top of the field is this year is Michigan State, where obviously like we'll get to their game with Maryland and them or not Iowa, sorry, I was thinking Michigan, but their game with Iowa and clinching the regular season title in the Big Ten, and like any other year, if they were to win the regular season Big Ten, finish, and let's say they go and win the Big Ten tournament too, they'd be 29-5 with a regular season Big Ten title and a Big Ten tournament championship, and they would have plenty of big wins throughout that. Like any other year, Michigan State is looking at a 1 seed this year, but that one line is just so jammed this year.
Yeah, for sure. It's it's going to be packed, and yeah, I don't envy the committee's job this year, but yeah, it's a tough one, and Michigan State's one of those teams that definitely is more of a second half team this year than they were a first half team, but both on the court and just how their scheduling went. So yeah, that's going to be a tough draw and tough out for someone, but yeah, that happens often with some of these teams, and Michigan State's, unfortunately for them, been the victim of that before. So,
I saw it. I was just reading what Jacob just sent.
Yeah, I'm looking at news on Twitter right now. There's like instant live feed as we are streaming, like all the March Madness tournaments.
But yeah, yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens on the one line this year. But yeah, that was definitely the biggest game of the week, and Florida's absolutely incredible. But I guess the next game that needs to be brought up was Tuesday night, was Auburn's loss at Texas A&M. Obviously, number 1 team in the country goes down. Needs to be discussed there. But with that said, like obviously it's the number 1 team in the nation losing. We need to talk about it, but like, I mean, I just didn't really think it was that big of a deal. I think Auburn kind of had the SEC regular season locked up.
I mean, it's a big deal for A&M.
Like, yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah, they lost 4 straight. They needed a win bad, but just like, I think this is not a normal circumstance where like a number 1 team loses, and it's the biggest story of the week. I'm just kind of like, it's to the point where it's like, yeah, like Auburn has the SEC regular season locked up, has Bama coming into town. They were coming off a big win to clinch that SEC regular season, and they probably have the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament locked up as well. So it's like, I just didn't really think it was like that newsy of a game, even though it's the number 1 team losing. Like I think Auburn just Like, they were coming off the high of clinching that SEC regular season and also looking forward to Bama and looking forward to March and just had an off night. Like, I don't think I don't, as an Auburn fan, I'm not like, oh, we fucking did this wrong and this wrong. And like, I don't have a ton to add to that. I think it was just a classic like letdown spot after you lock everything up basically.
Yeah, we talk often about like the desperation factor. Closer you get to the end of the regular season, the more desperate some of these teams become. A&M's not really a particularly desperate team, I would say. They certainly played as if they were because they had been on quite a skid themselves. But yeah, Auburn had already clinched, I'm sure, what they had set out to achieve at the start of the season here. And I think just because of, I'm not going to let them off the hook for how they played. But I do think there's
off the book.
Yeah, I think there's kind of an element of, like they clinched the 1 seed in SEC tournament play. I think they are looking ahead. I'm sure they would say otherwise, but I'm sure they are looking ahead to, their last home game, playing Bama, getting the opportunity to sweep Bama in this season, especially after them going to the Final Four, I think would be a huge deal for Auburn. So, I don't really want to say Auburn, played it like shit here, which, it wasn't their best game. A&M was significantly more desperate for that win than they were. We've talked about how Buzz Williams kind of has Bruce Pearl's number now. He's he's really outdone him head to head.
6-2.
That's impressive stuff there. So, give them credit. A&M needed, I would say, a true signature win on the season. They got it, and it's one of those. I don't think it affects Auburn's seeding. I don't think it affects the morale of their team. I do think Denver Jones' stock certainly went way up here for what he means to this Auburn team. I think that was definitely, I overlooked that myself going into that as well. So, I would assume that he's going to try and give it a go against Bama because he was, the key really for them stopping Mark Sears when they played the first time. So, I nothing really negative to bring in about Auburn there, except hopefully for them, they get Denver Jones back soon. Big win for A&M, another, added win for Buzz Williams against Bruce Pearl, but really not a terrible amount to take from this. It's hard to keep your team, that's why that Kentucky team that went undefeated for 38 games is so impressive, because just to keep that team focused and motivated to play that level of basketball throughout a whole regular season is hard, especially when you're that much better than the teams you've played against. And in this conference, it's unrealistic to expect, Auburn not to have one of these letdowns, especially before what some in the Auburn community might say is their biggest game of the season coming in, with Bama coming at home.
Yeah, I mean, it's a road game towards the end of the season. I think Auburn's just kind of, they've accomplished everything they need to in the regular season. Their last thing is to sweep their rival. Not a huge loss. A&M's a good team. They aren't world beaters, but they played good enough to beat Auburn Tuesday night. And Auburn didn't play their best offensive performance. Chad Baker Mazzara and Tahad Pettiford played pretty good, but Broom didn't play up to the standard. You've come accustomed to seeing from him.
Yeah, Cooper Flag really just overtook him. Yeah, that game probably cost him.
I'm okay with saying he's had two kind of duds in a row. It's to the point where I'm it got down the stretch. He had two bad games in a row when the lights were on. So he lost it, and it's not like I'm pissed he lost it. I think he had two bad games, and he probably deservedly is down in the race now after kind of two duds in a row.
Also, I'm not. It's really making its ways around Twitter today with people finding out that Chad Baker-Mazara has another year of eligibility. People are
Yeah,
losing
because he played
their
JUCO.
minds online. Yeah, people are going
I mean, you can thank
crazy.
Diego Pavia for
Yes,
that.
yeah. He,
Yeah,
who
him
knew?
and Denver Jones were both JUCO guys, so
Yeah,
they should both be back next year.
yeah. So
With
prepare
after
yourself.
the Diego Pavia stuff. So
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody wants to get mad about it and blame anybody, blame Diego Pavia.
Sark already has, so he's very upset. So that was just the football side of it. But yeah, basketball side of it will probably be felt more because it's very uncommon for, like more true freshmen probably see the court in basketball than they're seeing the field in some of these Power 5 football teams. So
Bruce said
yeah,
today Chad's going to play point guard next year.
interesting.
So, yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah, no, I'm very. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and question Bruce Pearl. Like, he knows his
Fair.
skill set better than any of us. So, like, if that's something Bruce feels, I mean, obviously, like, you got a 26-year-old experienced player on your team. Like, you want somebody running the point and like running your offense and handling the ball that's going to take care of it and be a smart player. And like, he's going to be a 26-year-old college player. So like. Yeah, I think it would be a good thing, and he could probably create a lot of shots for Todd Pettiford and whoever, and Pettiford doesn't have to handle the ball as much and can kind of cut more and get open and play off the ball more. And I think that because he's had to play a lot of point this year, and I think it would almost be better for Pettiford's skill set to not play the point and have somebody else kind of create for him.
Yeah, there are advantages. I mean, and Chad Baker-Mazara's really good in isolation. He's their best isolation scorer. So, yeah, I mean, there's advantages to having him play there. But as your friend here, I will not allow you to look ahead to next year. You still got enjoy this Auburn season here while you have it.
No doubt. But yeah, no, it was like. It's not the kind of like I'm definitely not coming on here like Jacob after that loss. Too pissed about it. I will say if I have one big takeaway from this game, it's please God do not let us see Texas A&M in March.
Yes,
because like
that'd be a
the
big
Buzz
one.
Williams factor is real at this point, and for whatever reason, he just has Bruce Pearl's number more than any other coach in the SEC. So we run into a Sweet 16 Elite 8 game against Texas A&M. I feel like that would be an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, that's one of the last matchups they should want to see for sure. That benefits them in no way, shape, or form. So, yeah, and obviously, like, it's still weird. Like, obviously, he's coming on here spitting fire because he fucking hates Illinois and Brad Underwood and everything that program stands for. I don't know too many. Like, I think LSU and Texas are maybe the only SEC programs who really have it out for A&M. Maybe A&M still has, certainly in basketball. I don't think A&M's done enough to really leave a mark of frustration on some of these fan bases yet. But
I mean, Buzz Williams is he had another.
He's insane. Yeah,
ran on the court again. Like I texted you guys during the game, but like I know the coaching box thing was like a big topic of discussion, especially at the start of the season when there wasn't.
He's beyond half court some of the time. Yeah,
he's got to be the most like serial offender to the coaching box stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, he's basically like he has better PR than Dan Hurley with some of this stuff. Like, just he is a crazy
will beat
man.
The timeout
call
last year when he ran out to half court.
Coaches don't.
Okay, make it a little more about you. Yeah.
Coaches don't get teed up for that yet. Hanging on the rim is a technical. Make it make sense.
Is it just gonna be every like? Is it the new thing in the SEC for like every coach like at the end of a big upset win to like tell fans to stay off the court and like
that was very annoying. I don't want to wade too deep into if we wanted to talk about Tennessee Ole Miss, but that was I was kind of like, really, Ole Miss? Let them storm the fucking court. You're Ole Miss. You're not Kentucky. Let's let them on the floor.
It's a party school too. Like make them.
I like how what they're doing to like trick fans into not doing it. Basically, is like they're convincing fans that like this $250,000 is gonna like cost them a player in the portal, which like I don't like. I'm not in a college athletic department like budget, but like I don't think this $250,000 for a fine from the SEC is coming out of like the same pot of money as NIL. Like,
Yeah, sooner or later
Yeah.
here they're gonna roll out. Like they're gonna ask Lane Kiffin to go out and like get on the mic and be like, "You guys cost us Caleb Downs in the portal because you stormed the court, couldn't afford him." Like I don't believe a minute of that. I do know, like at Baylor, Juve is threat like they will punish the students if they are caught storming the court there. So yes, although Baylor should not be storming the court against anyone. They've won a national championship in the last 5 years here, so yeah, I believe that should be in the rules for if you've made a Final Four or won a national championship. Let's avoid storming the court
Yeah.
there.
no,
You're above that.
there's a sense of pride in
There's
that too. Like,
yeah,
like
unless it's a
I
buzzer
remember
beater.
a couple years ago when the Brandon Miller year when Auburn was playing Alabama at home. Auburn was unranked and Alabama was number 1 or number 2 going into that game, and like Bruce Pearl came out and Auburn didn't end up winning that game, but Bruce came out before the game and I think this was before the fines were they were really enforcing that or anything, but Bruce was like, no, like do not storm our court, because they didn't want to give Alabama the satisfaction of us storming the court on them if we were able to pull off that upset. And Bruce Pearl was adamant. They played he said to the students camping outside on a megaphone before they went in, and then they played a video on the screen, and he was telling people do not storm our court, have some pride, we don't storm the court on anybody. And he Bruce was really adamant about that.
That's fair. I mean, I respect both ways of it. I do. I'm a sucker for a good court storm, so I'm always encouraging it.
Well, I mean, we don't want to get Kyle Filipowski killed, of course, but
that is true. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't tell Jay Billis what you just said. He'll take some serious offense to it.
No, I love Billis is my favorite guy in college basketball, but yeah, come on, Jay. Let's not to a point where it affects the kid's safety.
Yeah.
Did you ever listen to?
I don't want the kids to get hurt or anything, but let them get off the floor and then go storm the court. I don't see any harm in that.
Did you listen to his "Pardon My Take" interview after the Filipowski thing last year?
I did not. No. I tried to avoid all coverage of that.
Yeah, him and Big Cat went at it about the court storming thing. Billis legit was pissed. It was not a friendly back and forth. Billis was. I don't think he understood Pardon My Take and Big Cat and PFT's sense of humor. And then he was just not having it with them. They got in a serious debate about it, and Billis was shoot pissed.
Jeez.
And he has not been back on PMT since that. So.
Well, thankfully, it hasn't been a topic of discussion this year, so that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, because I guess Duke hasn't gotten I guess tomorrow, if Duke loses, it might be a topic of discussion.
Maybe. Yeah, I could not see.
Does UNC, are they a never storm, or
I think they are in that discussion, yeah. I think they see themselves in that light, so I don't foresee them storming, especially against Duke. I don't think so. I couldn't see them doing that, but who knows? They are certainly not UNC of their usual standards this year, so that could provide some issues.
Well, Matt, I'll throw you the next layup since we talked about Auburn, we talked about Purdue, so I'll bring up UConn Marquette next, and a big win for I did not watch this game, so I really don't have anything to add. I'm at work during the week at night, so I'm kind of subject to one game at a time, so I was not able to get this one on, but since we've talked about our teams, I will throw you the ball to talk about UConn's big win against Marquette, 72-66. The Huskies starting to right the ship, it seems like. So how'd you come out of that one feeling?
Yeah, they defended. That was one of their best defensive games of the season. They defended really well. They defended really well in the second half. It got to the point where Cam Jones really, for Marquette, is at his best when he's going downhill, attacking the basket. UConn, I did not do a great job of guarding him until probably 10 minutes remaining in the game. They threw more bodies on him. They were able to force him to his left a lot more. Just make every look at the rim for him really, really tough. So they did a really nice job defending a guard that's given them issues in the past. And Alex Caravan, who was awful for most of the season offensively, finally put together good offensive game, made some huge shots down the stretch, defended really well. This was really good game by Samson Johnson as well, one of their big men. So, it was encouraging, especially the way they beat Marquette. Just a really fun game, fun back and forth. UConn ran some great sets offensively. And just, defensive intensity in the second half for them has kind of been an issue. Liam McNeely has really struggled to guard for as good of a player as he is. He struggled to defend and maintain a really high presence on the defensive side of the floor. So he, was average defensively that game, but overall, just really encouraging for how they won. Marquette was out of answers. Shaka was telling them in the huddle. Fox had some good snippets of coverage of, the inside the huddle stuff with Hurley and Shaka Smart. And Shaka basically was, telling them that, with some of those backouts and Cam Jones going downhill, and he was saying that's the only way. That's the only way they were going to score. So, that was hugely encouraging for UConn. That's a big one for them that basically put them in position where they're in the top 4 in the Big East. So it's a much easier game. They're the 3 seed in the Big East now, I think. So that means that they obviously do not match up with St. John's until the Big East final, and they avoid the dreaded 4-5 game in Big East tournament play. So they do get Villanova potentially if Villanova wins their first round Big East game, which has been kind of a difficult-ish matchup for them. Eric Dixon is the nation's leading scorer, and they're playing for an NCAA tournament bid. So, all things considered, that was probably UConn's best game of the year. That was their most complete game. It was their best defensive game. Execution was awesome. So that was encouraging. That makes you think that there's a scenario where they stand a chance against every 1 seed. There's a scenario where they could beat them. If it's a best of 7 type thing, they might lose in 5 instead of getting swept every time type of thing. So the version against Marquette that you saw is a version that can compete and go deep into an NCAA tournament. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come for them. They really played awesome offensively in the Big East tournament last year. They were really fun to watch in that. So we'll see what happens. But it was a really encouraging result for UConn there. So can't really complain about how they played.
Just a quick live update, by the way, while we're doing the show, but Boise just took a loss that they absolutely could not afford at all. And they really gave that game away down the stretch.
And Colorado State needed that win very badly.
Colorado State still has an outside shot at an at-large, but Boise is last team in range most places you look. So that is a devastating, especially at home. Like that's probably a lot
it's a tough one.
Them out. Yeah. Like I think after that loss, they're going to have a hard time getting an at-large unless they do some real damage in the Mountain West tournament.
Yeah, they're going to probably have to beat New Mexico. That might be what it takes for them to get an at minimum beat New Mexico for sure. So we'll see.
Jacob, do you got anything to add on UConn Marquette?
Not really. I saw Marquette had taken a lead, and then UConn came back. UConn just kind of took care of business in that game. Did what they needed to do. I didn't really watch much of it on Tuesday
I would
night.
probably group Marquette in with, if you see Marquette against an 11 seed or against a 12 seed in the NCAA tournament, that should be a pretty popular pick. they have struggled against the best teams in the Big East. So they haven't really done great against St. John's, against Creighton, against UConn. So they should be a fairly popular pick to be upset in round one. Outside of Cam Jones, they really don't have a lot of scoring threats offensively that teams who are like really well organized defensively are going to have that hard of a time with. So really like need one or two really capable on-ball defenders and guys who are, going to be able to keep Cam Jones out of lane, keep him from going downhill. But yeah, Marquette, that should be a popular, trendy upset pick for, if they're in the 5 seed or 6 seed territory.
Yeah, I agree with that. And also, I'll just continue to say, like, if UConn lands on the 8-9 line like they're trending, they continue, like, that's a nightmare scenario if you're a 1 seed to see the back-to-back defending national champions on the 8-9 line in your region. Do not want any part of that as a fan of a team that's probably going to be a 1 seed. So,
yeah, it's a tough 8-9 line as is. So Gonzaga's on there. Baylor could be on there. There are some teams that, just really high expectations, really stacked rosters coming into the season. And they still are really, stacked teams. And, it's one of the better 8-9 lines you'll see. Usually sometimes you get like Utah State was on it last year. And then Purdue just crushed them. That was a team that, traditionally is on the 8-9 line. This year, it's not the case. So, it's going to be a tough matchup for really. I would say Houston would be the toughest matchup for UConn. That would be the one team that UConn really, really doesn't want to see on the 1-line teams. So, yeah, but I'm sure they really like their chances against anyone because in their minds they have nothing to lose really.
Well, I guess next, another team that's looking like they're going to be an interesting team that's going to land on the 8-9 line is Kansas. Boy, the tumble they have had since the bracket release has been astounding. But figured we shall mention the Houston-Kansas game on Monday. Kansas did not play bad in this game, though. Like, they hung around with Houston. But, yeah, Houston was able to get the job done at home. And, yeah, I don't know what more we can say about Kansas that we haven't said yet at this point. But they are just not great. And Cryer was awesome in this game.
Houston's
Houston
really
is no doubt.
Another team, we can kind of continue in that Big 12 vein, the Iowa State BYU game from Tuesday night.
Crazy game, yeah.
Yeah, 2 overtime game. BYU
huge
took it.
Win there, yeah.
Yeah, BYU's looking like a solid contender in March Madness.
BYU's I believe I was looking, they are like the number 7 team at Torvik since like the start of February or something like that.
And they were in the first 4 out, last 4 in territory, and they've just left no doubt now. They've been on fire. So Kevin Young, love Kevin Young as a coach. If I were Indiana, I would call Kevin Young. He would be, at minimum, I would make him say no to that job. He is someone with an NBA background. The offensive stuff they run is like second to none. They are most of the time going to get a really good look on offense because of just the deep stack of sets that they have in their bag that they can run offensively. And what's picked it up for them, they've been good enough on, playing defense here that it's been enough for them in some of these games. But to go at Iowa State and win the way that they did, that's, something that not a lot of, Iowa State's got like a top tier home court, probably not on par with the Fog Hounds or the Mackies, but it's the next tier. Yeah, so it's in that next tier kind of. So,
well, remember
Hilton is at its best when
we were told earlier this year that nobody Nobody wins in Hilton. It's
Oh,
impossible.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Hilton's an awesome, so like I do believe that Hilton is like probably one of the 10 best home courts in the sport. But yeah, I mean, and this is not one of the like ironclad defensive stalwart Iowa State teams that they've had there. It's still a very strong defensive team, but it's not like what they were last year. Last year, they were just kind of like unbelievably sound on defense. This year, they're not exactly that. They're a better offensive team, but they're not quite the defense they were a year ago. So yeah, really impressive job by BYU. And you kind of have to think, like, sorry to throw this out there, but BYU probably, are they really that sad that Mark Pope is now the coach of Kentucky? Don't think so. So yeah, I would say they made out pretty good in that situation. So yeah, props to them. It's rare that you see a team like, them and Kansas going in completely different directions. Kansas was, in the top 12, top 16 when they had that bracket release, and then BYU is out of the tournament at that point, and now they situations have flipped entirely. And as you said before, Kansas did not play that game at Houston. They actually played pretty well. They were in that game till the end, and then like Kansas had some shocking turnovers just late in the second half of that game that really took them out of it. So it's tough. You don't want to write off, like, just because of how talented Kansas is. It's hard to just like write them off completely, but because you'll feel like an idiot if they are on like the 8-9 line. It's like, holy shit, like Kansas just beat Bama in their second round tournament game here.
I'll say this: I'm not really concerned if I see Kansas in the second round at this point. I
wouldn't be either.
I feel like I've seen enough from this Kansas team that I just have no faith in them.
I mean, Gonzaga saw them last year, and Gonzaga just dump trucked them. It was not remotely close. There was really nothing that Gonzaga ran that Kansas could stop. And this year, yeah, I mean, if you're getting to 70 points against this Kansas team, you're probably going to beat them. So, I would not be particularly like, they're not a team that I would like really shudder if I saw them in my bracket.
Did you hear Fran during this game, by the way? He was like,
Fran was not happy at multiple points, yeah.
He said the quiet part out loud, too. He was like, Bill Self failed in the portal, which, like, to hear, like, a game, and, like, obviously we all know that's what happened, but still, like, hear an announcer, like, on a game just, like, say, like, flat out say that, the quiet part
Fran's as good as they come, and he is a Big 12 connoisseur, and he has good enough relationships with those coaches clearly where he's comfortable enough calling out the bullshit when he sees it. So give Fran credit there. Yeah.
He said Bill Self failed in the portal like during the game. I was like, wow. Like usually announcers will kind of like toe the line a little bit more than that. He said the quiet part out loud.
No one will have a bigger like portal overhaul in terms of how they evaluate players and how they assemble rosters than that Kansas team, which they should, because they absolutely just, as talented as that team may be, they are. It's just not a good collection of fits. So, tough one there. But
you mentioned the Indiana stuff too with BYU. I just want to say, like, that whole matchup with BYU and Iowa State, that was really like the Indiana Bowl, because I think TJ Otzelberger is another guy that should be top of their list. That
Jeff Goodman is sold that TJ Otzelberger is or should get that Indiana job. He was very high on that. I don't think TJ Otzelberger would go. I don't think he would leave for Indiana.
Well, it's just a money thing, because I think Indiana has more money than Iowa State does, and I don't know how high.
Yeah, so Otzelberger has a really low buyout, which makes him like kind of connected to all of these jobs. His buyout is not very big. I think it's like $4.5 million, which is really small for an elite coach. So I think that alone makes it more feasible. Iowa State's kind of been that stepping stone program in the past. Greg McDermott had the job. Fred Hoiberg had the job. So now TJ Otzelberger has it. So I would be very surprised if Iowa State has they've paid a lot of, like Matt Campbell has done the dance before in football. He's been linked with jobs for years, and Iowa State has kind of incrementally put up the money to keep him. So I would be really surprised if, TJ Altenberger did not go back to Iowa State and be like, hey, I'm going to need like a little more here. I don't think they would say no. So we'll see. I think right now Iowa State's probably a better job than Indiana, all things considered. So it's to each their own. But yeah, I just Otz is a really like intense defensive coach. I don't really think that screams Indiana or like their personality.
It screams Big Ten though.
It does. It definitely does. And obviously, above anything else, Indiana would say, fuck the personality fit. We just want to win. That's all we care about. So, yeah, I don't really know. I just kind of see Iowa State to Indiana as like a lateral move, if anything. I don't really see it as that much more of an attractive job. But we'll see. I mean, and Iowa State will have their pick. That they'll be fine if, not be fine, obviously, per se, but they will have their pick of coaches, I'm sure, if he were to go and take that job. But, yeah, we'll see what happens. But
you mentioned in the
right
Matt
now
Campbell stuff just made me think, did you ever see that video a couple years ago when, like, that kid was like, hey, Matt, you're on the hot seat. And, like, Matt Campbell, like, ran up to this guy, like, trying to fucking fight him.
Yeah.
Because the guy was like, he's like, what the fuck did you say? And like, it was like a teenager, and Matt Campbell like runs up to this guy. Like,
yeah, Matt Campbell's been like linked with NFL jobs forever. Like he was really like when Robert Saleh got the Jets job, he was like one of the finalists for that job, and I think he had to turn them down. He had to turn down the Bears.
The Lions too, when they hired Dan Campbell. I think they offered it to Matt.
That job.
Because I remember it was going to be one of the Campbells was like the whole thing. Right?
So yeah, he seems relatively content with being the Iowa State football coach. So yeah, I don't know Otzelberger's a Midwest guy. His background, in the Summit League and now at Iowa State. So yeah, we'll see. I still would probably say they need to kind of they'll make all these coaches say no. But I mean, right now, Indiana is playing decent basketball. So there's not a lot of stuff that's not going well for them these days. So they should be kind of like they should be in the field.
Let me look and see what at the Field of 68 bracket earlier I sent and see where they're sitting now. They are.
They should be probably like
on the 11 line. On the 11 line.
So that's like
Missouri.
Near Dayton territory.
Yeah.
So and they don't match up poorly with Missouri if they got that matchup. So yeah, I would be very curious to hear some of the emotions of the Indiana fan base and where they're at, and just kind of how far they're willing to go with this Mike Woodson stuff here. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, credit to them. Well done by Indiana to get to where they are now.
All right. Well, Jacob is out at the moment. I was gonna let him have his moment for the Big South tournament if he'd like, because there he is. I want to, Jacob. Oh, let me put the headphones back on. Jacob.
What?
Do you want your minute for the Big South tournament? I know you've been down there.
Yeah.
I didn't want to wait till just like because I know you've been covering that in earnest. So I didn't want to wait till the end of the show to give you your minute or two to talk about that.
Mm-hmm. I know. Just with the conference tournaments starting this week, I'd gone to a few of the Big South tournament games since it's in Johnson City here.
Are you going to the whole tournament?
No. I just went to the first game and then a couple of the games tonight because I'm going to go down to the SoCon tournament tomorrow.
Nice.
Because ETSU is playing down there, so ETSU takes priority over Big South basketball.
Understandable. Yeah, I just wanted to give you your minute to speak on that since you've been at those games before we kind of move through the week.
Today's been kind of good. Wednesday night there was like nobody there. I don't know why they put the like first round games all by themselves. Like they had one women's game and one men's game all by themselves on a Wednesday night, and there's like 10 people there. Of course, obviously with
How much is like a ticket book to go to the whole Big South tournament? It has to be like $50, right?
No, it's more than that actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I have no clue. It's like $35 a session, but if you have a student ID,
What?
it's like $10. It's $10.
Who's paying $35 to go to the Big South tournament? That is ridiculous.
I had to.
We got a live update here. New Mexico officially clinches Mountain West regular season title here. Just beat UNLV. One of my favorite names in college basketball, Nelly Jr. Joseph, had 26 and 16 for New Mexico here.
Has Gus done a fucking New Mexico game, or do I just have like the thought in my head of Gus saying like Nelly Jr. Joseph? Like,
Nelly Jr. Joseph.
And
it's getting hot in here for Nelly Jr. Joseph.
I was like, I can't remember if Gus has actually done a New Mexico game or that just like sits in my head as something Gus Johnson would say. Like,
definitely see him going that route. Good gracious asses both. Nelly Jr. Joseph for 3.
Oh man. Oh shit. All right. Well, let's bounce. We did not mention Tennessee Ole Miss. We still need to talk about that game because we alluded to it, but we haven't talked about that game in earnest yet. But yeah, real letdown for Tennessee. They kind of screwed themselves because if they took care of business against Ole Miss here, they would have probably been in the driver's seat to get a 1 seed, and they kind of just pissed it away. And what's really important too is in the same boat, they pissed away their chance to possibly play in Lexington the first weekend, which is an easy drive from Knoxville. And now, like, that loss knocked them from playing in Lexington and being a 1 seed to being a 2 seed and playing in Cleveland. So, like, that's a big difference in those two. And obviously, like, we're going to Lexington, and I don't want to see fucking Alabama fans there. I'd much rather see Tennessee fans there. So I was rooting for Tennessee hard in this game for that manner. But, yeah, tough loss for Tennessee, 78-76. Again, another SEC coach. Stay off the court, please. Like, so we got to see another example of that. But yeah, big win for Ole Miss. Like, them and A&M were two teams that were kind of in skids that needed big ones to kind of get back on the right track, and they both got them this week. But yeah, on Tennessee, Ole Miss, I had high praise for Tennessee last time we talked on here. It's a road loss, so I still kind of stand by my stance on them. I think it was just a close road loss, but yeah, anything on Tennessee Ole Miss from either of you?
Absolutely massive game from Jamin Brakefield for Ole Miss. He kind of carried Ole Miss down the stretch. Tennessee just didn't have that the luck on their side against Ole Miss. Kind of what they did against Alabama, and I mean, it was just a close loss. You take those down the stretch, especially in a conference like SEC. So that's my thoughts on it. It did hurt them in the one seed. They lost the 1 seed, but I mean, they can bounce back from it. So,
yeah, I am pretty sure that Brakefield here played with, like, I don't think he did, obviously, but I'm pretty sure he played at Duke like 5 years ago here, and now he's here with Ole Miss. But yeah, great game by him. Very, very poor from Sakai Zigor.
Yeah, he was
every
terrible.
time I'm willing to like put my differences aside with Sakai Zigor, and I am ready to be like, you know what, maybe he's not as bad as I think he is. He just goes out and plays a horrendous game.
Another great game for Jordan Gainey, though. He's really coming on. So.
Yeah, so
I've always been a Gainey believer.
Yeah, it's frustrating with them. Just not a very consistent team. I mean, again, we've talked that this is, probably the best offensive team Tennessee's had since that 2019 team with Grant Williams that ran into Purdue and got beat. But they still it's not a team that I go into some of these matchups and like, oh my gosh, if Tennessee's got to get to 80 points this game, are they going to do it? Like, I really don't know. I don't know if that's something they, now defensively, they're really strong to the point where they haven't had to really play in much of those games. Like in their Florida game, they totally just clamped Florida to the point where they looked inept offensively. That was their best game. But yeah, it's just a team that I feel uninspired by unless they just get a run of matchups in the NCAA tournament where I'm just like, yeah, they would beat the brakes off this team. They beat the brakes off this team. So it's tough. They're going to be a tough evaluation come March because they really just don't have a player that I can, like how Florida has with Walter Clayton, how Auburn has with Janai Brome, that you can just be like, okay, when all else breaks down, we can count on this guy to get us a bucket. They don't have that type of player. So that's going to be the biggest thing there. This game, like, it's just kind of similar to how it was with, Auburn and A&M, where you're like, it's a road game in conference. Ole Miss was due for one of these games. A&M was due for one of these games. Both teams really, really needed one of those wins. And yeah, they both got it. It was not looking good because, when Davis committed the foul on the 4-point play there for Tennessee to tie the game, that was pretty rough. And then Igor had a really, really good look to send the game to overtime, like a foot from the basket, and just kind of botched the layup. So it was close. It was not like a bad loss by any means.
But Tennessee, it's a bad loss for Tennessee could not afford this loss for their seeding.
It's a bad loss in that sense, damaging. Yeah. In the big picture of their season, it's not ideal. It's certainly not. They had played themselves onto one line. They then immediately played themselves off it. So, yeah, I do think that in the case of Tennessee, they would have really benefited by obviously being a 1. The teams we talked about on the 8 line, it's the same kind of thing. UConn really would have struggled with Tennessee. Gonzaga really would have struggled with Tennessee. The teams on the 7 line and the 10 line, it's a much more, those teams are a lot grittier. It's a more grimier style that some of those teams want to play. So it's probably not going to be a really high flying team they see in, the second round. So it's going to be a different pace depending on obviously who gets there. But yeah, just very big time fumble from Tennessee in that one. And
oh my God, to mention what they are projected to play the winner of BYU VCU, which if Tennessee and VCU play, oh my God, what a fucking gross game that would be. I just had to look real quick to see what you were talking about, and of course I see it matched up with VCU, and I'm like, oh my.
Yes, that's what I mean there. You're not going to be seeing the Gonzaga UConn type teams. You'll be seeing the VCUs. And
that game might be in the 30s.
Yeah, that will be literally if those teams play to gosh, I could see that being a 55 to 50 game or something or lower. It would be mayhem. There will not be a lot of possessions between those teams in that game. But yeah, that's a tough one. Big picture for Tennessee. So yeah, my opinions on them are kind of unchanged. It's kind of it's a little less from where it was a few days ago. But yeah, and they had it's kind of funny. They had the exact situation they had against Bama, where they were in the overtime, or in regulation rather, and they kind of had, Meshack going to, flying down the court, and then he just stops because Rick Barnes is clamoring for the timeout, and they take the timeout, and he probably had the same exact look he had to beat Bama, and they didn't take it. Rick Barnes.
Did you guys see that? It was at the it was with 5 minutes left in the Florida Alabama game where they played that weird clip of Meshack and Reese Davis standing there.
Yeah.
And Reese Davis is like, "You want to hit the shot again?" And he's like, "Let's just save it for the game." And he's like, "All right, back to Alabama." It's the weirdest fucking it was with 5 minutes left in Alabama, Florida. I was like, "Where's what?"
Yeah.
What the fuck is this?
Yeah, that was a weird one.
It just mentioning that made me think of it. But yeah, that was strange, and it's almost weird to see ESPN fucking trolling Alabama fans. I'm sure Greg Byrne fucking called ESPN's offices after that and was like, "What the fuck is this? You're not allowed to do that to us."
Greg Sankey was getting calls from Greg Byrne after doing the coin flip for the women's seeding in the SEC tournament. Busy doing that.
Auburn's in the market for a women's basketball coach now, by the way.
Did not know that.
Yeah. We need the Grand Canyon coach.
Yeah. More you know. Yeah.
Yeah. Just look that one up on Twitter.
Yeah, I already know.
She's a beautiful lady.
Whatever works.
Yeah. Anything else on Tennessee Ole Miss?
I think we covered it.
Nah, the Grand Canyon thing. There was a tweet from an Auburn fan earlier this week. He's like, "You want the fucking jungle pact for women's basketball games? Hire her." And they just pasted the fucking Grand Canyon coach, and everybody's just like, "Hell yeah." So yeah. All right. Yeah. Start rolling through the week a little bit. Definitely a lot of a lot of good games this week. I'm trying to fucking. We're already an hour and a half in. And it's I've been
there's so much.
About Maryland, Michigan.
Yeah, Maryland, Michigan.
We haven't talked about Michigan State, Iowa, and Michigan State locking up the Big Ten regular season. So let's go with those two real quick. We'll group the Michigan schools together again.
Boy, you want to talk about a ref show? That Michigan State Iowa game was horrendous. That Holloman block, that guy, that was infuriating.
Sounds like Fran McCaffrey blew up, I think.
Oh yeah, he's getting there. I'm sorry, I'm very distracted right now. Nikola Jokic is having one of the best basketball games I've ever seen live. He's got what's he got right now? He's got 30 points, 20 rebounds, 20 assists. So he's having a decent game.
It's been
that is the first
decent
game in the history of the NBA. They just put that on the screen. That is insanity. That is crazy.
That's about like Derek White and Peyton Pritchard scoring 40 and 40 this week.
Unbelievable. But all things considered, Maryland, Michigan, this is just a sign of where those teams are. Michigan is going in the very, very wrong direction. I think a lot of these teams have started to figure out how to defend them better. And it shows because they are just kind of rough to watch. They're rough to watch on both ends. Defensively, Maryland did really well against them. It was not Maryland's best game, but they still just really did a good job finding pockets of space to kind of expose Michigan defense. And I really don't know what to do with Michigan now. I'm probably going to pick against them depending on who it is. If they get Drake, I will probably I would encourage people to bet in the thousands on Drake to beat Michigan if that matchup took place.
Dude, I need fucking Yale versus. I need somebody else to fucking.
The Danny will prevent game. Yeah.
UC San Diego versus Michigan.
Yeah, San Diego would probably beat Michigan.
I just need Yale to back up what they did last year, just so I can be like, see.
Yeah, not so
Yale's
simple.
up.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think I think this season is kind of like, I don't know if it's I've had this conversation with a few other people, if this Michigan season is kind of being unfairly framed now because they were playing so well, and then now it's just all completely gone to shit.
I don't think it's
entirely.
unfair though, because I think it's fair to adjust expectations as the year goes on.
Yeah,
So it's
I think
like,
that's fair also. I don't think it's, I mean, this has happened before with, um, on a lesser scale, it happened a bit when, Mac Jones' rookie year with the Patriots, they get crushed by Buffalo. And it's like, oh, was the season a success? Was the season a failure? It's like, well, largely, it ended up being kind of like, successful for Mac Jones and some of their younger players. But like, yeah, it was ultimately a failure. You got the fucking doors blown off you at the last game of the season there.
I mean, it's like the Panthers Super Bowl
Sure.
against
Yeah.
the Broncos. It's like nobody expected them to have the season they did and go on that run, but it's like still for it to end like that is pretty
Yeah.
shitty.
And
Like,
sure, that's on a much larger scale. But yeah, in this case, I think, there's a sense of disappointment around the Michigan program that it's, become this, and it's probably going to end badly for them in NCAA tournament play. I would be shocked if they won more than a game, if a game at all. So yeah, it's just kind of a lot. So I don't really know. Like, it's hard for Michigan because there's not a lot of adjustments they can make. There's not a ton of stuff they can do besides having different guys initiate offense, which they've already tried a bunch. They obviously want to play through the bigs. It's just becoming more and more difficult for them to do that because so many of these teams are just really well prepared for what they've had. There's so much film on Michigan now for these teams to prepare for them. The coaches they're going against are not bums, and they've developed just really good game plans on both ends to slow them down. So I think it's, this is kind of the ceiling for Michigan. They've won a lot of close games, as we've talked about. This is just, it's, I would say overall, successful first year for Dusty May, but it certainly has not ended how they hoped it would, especially where they were halfway through there. And, in the case of Maryland, Maryland's a really dangerous team. Maryland rates really well in the efficiency rankings. I think they're probably top 20 in both efficiency for offense and defense on KenPom. They are loaded with talent.
one of the best starting fives in the country.
Yes, it is. And
the crab five.
Yes, they are. Yeah, they are really good. They have started winning more on the road, which is something that I was kind of skeptical about. But yeah, they are going to be a really tough out for someone. That's just a really, really good basketball team, top to bottom. They don't make many mistakes. They are just probably, they're going to have to improve a little on the margins to be a Elite Eight, Final Four type team. But I believe right now, based on talent, they are like an Elite Eight team. I think they have Elite Eight talent. And when they're at their best, they are that kind of team. They are an Elite Eight type team. So, yeah. And obviously with the big guys, there's not many big guys who can bang with Queen down low. So they just are very well balanced, both offensively and defensively. They're going to be a really tough out for someone. I would not be shocked. I still think that Michigan State should probably be the Big Ten tournament favorite, but I would not be surprised if, given how they're playing right now, that Maryland would win that tournament. So we'll see what happens.
Not at all. Yeah. And then we mentioned Michigan State too. Win against Iowa. Another great second half for Michigan State, and they clinched the Big Ten regular season with that win. Yeah, they were down early in the first half, and
very chippy.
Yeah, that was a big one.
A lot of shit talking in that one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and another huge, Michigan State's done that quite a few times down the stretch here, where they just come out and have these monster second halves.
Yeah.
And really take over a game. It's quite impressive the way obviously you don't want to start shitty the way they've been starting, but the fact they've been able to get hot and win these games, ton to be said about that. And yeah, Michigan State, so they lock up the Big Ten regular season. Like I said, in any other season, like the resume that Michigan State's built, and if they go on a run and win the Big Ten tournament, they'd probably be in the 1 seed conversation. But they're just like a notch below that this year. But and Jace Richardson was incredible again in this game.
He's been
This
killing
Michigan State team, like they've been shooting it. Like we talked a lot about them not being able to shoot. They've been shooting it a lot better. Like they can score, and especially in these second halves. Like I'm pulling up the box score because I want to see how many points they had in the second half. It's like 63 or so, 61.
Yeah, their second half point
points
differential is off the hook. Yeah, they have dominated second halves, and the shooting, while still not, where you would particularly want it to be, it's still significantly better from where it was, halfway through the season. They're shooting the ball way better. They're taking better shots. Their best shooters are shooting more than, some of these guys who I'm like, why are you taking that shot kind of thing? They've just kind of become more efficient offensively and just smarter offensively. It's a credit to Izzo. He's as good as they come. There's, really running out of things to say about him. So we'll see what happens. They should be the favorite in Big Ten tournament play. As we've talked about before, I think if they win the Big Ten tournament, I think that gets them as high as a 2. But I
think they're already a 2, like pretty solid. Like I don't think they're moving off the 2, whatever happens. Like I don't think they can do enough to get to a 1, but I don't think they can fall to a 3.
Yeah, that's going to be. I mean, that will probably be the biggest debate topic in the Big Ten come time for seeding. They're on that 2 line now, but as you said, they're certainly not cracking any. They're not knocking off any of those 1 seeds for seeding. And 3 line has been a revolving door throughout the year, throughout the last few weeks. Those teams are constantly going in and out. So, yeah, I would, if I were on the selection committee, I'm probably comfortably seeding Michigan State at 2, regardless of what happens in Big Ten tournament play.
Yeah. All right. So we'll talk some bubble games. I'll kind of go through the week and hit the results that matter. But the first couple ones that I wanted to talk about were Texas got a big road win at Mississippi State. That was going to be their last gasp at anything, and that's a big one. If they can win tomorrow against Oklahoma and string something together in Nashville, Texas might have a shot. So that was a big result. The Nebraska-Ohio State game was insane. I was watching that one. That was a crazy, crazy, crazy game. And Ohio State was able to prevail there. That would have been Ohio State's 7th or 8th home loss of the season. So, yeah, if Ohio State lost this game, I would not have wanted to hear from them anymore. Nebraska, Nebraska's still hanging around the bubble, but the most places you look, they're on the outside looking in at this point. That was a big one either way it turned out. And then Indiana lost on the road to Oregon. So that was a big one. So I'll start with those 3. I'll kind of try to name some bubble games off like 2 or 3 at a time to talk about, and we'll go through these teams. But yeah, those are the 3 I'll start with.
Yeah, I selfishly want to see Trey Johnson in the NCAA tournament. So
absolutely,
hope he gets a shot there. That game against Oklahoma probably is an elimination game, I would say, for all intents and purposes. That Nebraska-Ohio State game completely flew under the radar for a lot of people who did not know that was going on.
Yeah, that was like
it was on Peacock. That's happened all year.
Peacock games, nobody seems to know what's going on. I'm like, are you seeing this now? Where can I watch it?
It came on after the Purdue game. I watched a little bit of it, and then I noped off the bed. So
the game was insane.
Yeah, I saw the score and I was like, what?
I mean, this game and the BYU Iowa State game were in double overtime at the same time. It was in, what was this, Tuesday, Wednesday night?
Double overtime.
The
Tuesday
days
night.
all running. Tuesday night, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were both in double overtime at the same time. It was like, this is fucking pandemonium right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Nebraska Ohio State game was incredible.
Bryce
I mean, there was
Williams
just
had
like
43 points.
And there were so many back and forth
Yeah.
moments in that game where like it seemed like one team took control
Mm-hmm.
and then another team would battle back and like dude, like that game was off the chain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Ohio State could not afford another like if they lost like I said, it either would have been their 7th or 8th home loss. Like if you lose that many times at home, it's already to the point where I'm making that argument, but if they took another home loss, I'd have been like, do not fucking mention Ohio State to me ever. I already don't think Ohio State's that good, but they're kind of clinging to some big wins in the non-conference that are propping them up. Like,
Yes.
I really don't think Ohio State or Nebraska are that good, frankly. Like, they're both teams that I don't like. I mean, we mentioned earlier this week, like, we brought up Arkansas, for example. Like Nebraska has a better record in the first 2 quadrants than Arkansas does. So that's what's holding them up. But like, if we're just going off like eye tests, like, is there anybody out there who thinks? And I don't think Arkansas is great, but I think Arkansas is a fucking better team than Nebraska.
For sure, Arkansas is a better team than Nebraska. Oklahoma is a better team than Nebraska. Texas is a better team than Nebraska. Yes, 100%.
I don't know about Oklahoma. That might be the one I push back on. I just don't think Oklahoma's that good. But
they're not that good, but I still think they're probably better than Nebraska. But yeah.
I think that I agree with you about Texas and Arkansas. Oklahoma's like, from what I've seen from obviously they got like, they're like I said, they're another team clinging to the non-comp or that not even a good non-conference, but the fact they were 13-0 in non-conference, like that's propping them Oklahoma up at this point. But
and the Michigan free fall is not helping them either.
No,
that was one of the wins that they were hanging their hat on, and for Michigan to kind of be where they are now, that would have only really helped them if Michigan won the Big Ten regular season, which
I agree with your sentiment though, like what you were saying, like
sure,
but yeah, that Nebraska Ohio State game was insane. It's probably going to come down to the Big Ten tournament for a lot of these because there's quite the gaggle, and I think like those teams like Ohio State and Nebraska are both probably going to need to go to Indy and get a win or two to feel good about their positioning. And then what else did I mention? Indiana, Oregon. Indiana went on the road, lost to Oregon. Not a bad loss there. That probably didn't really hurt them too much.
Shouldn't have. No.
But of note for the bubble battle there, and then Texas had to. They went to overtime and got that win at Mississippi State. That was a season ender for Texas if they lost that one, and they tried their very best to give that one away, but they were able to hang on, and which is just I feel like this is a common theme with Texas and them giving games away. I don't think Rodney Terry's that good a coach. That has a lot to do with it. Yeah. But yeah, they were able to get that win on the road. Trey Johnson was awesome. He had 23 in this game, hit 6 3-pointers, so he was awesome again. One Texas needed desperately if they were going to have a puncher's chance left at this thing.
Yeah, for sure. That was one they needed. They quite literally almost threw the game away. The inbounds pass late where the ball is just directly thrown into a Mississippi State player right in front of Rodney Terry as he's like having
what are you doing?
Yeah, it's like what is happening here? So yeah, it's tough stuff there.
So the next, Jacob, did you have anything else to add on those 3? I got another Tuesday pod of 3 for the bubble. If you don't,
I think you all covered it pretty good.
All right, so the next Tuesday pod of 3 for the bubble, like Baylor got a huge win against TCU.
Just massive, and obviously TCU Baylor, one of the biggest, if not the biggest rivalry in the state of Texas. This is it's their biggest football rivalry. Baylor stormed the field after beating TCU in football this year, so it's a very big deal to them. So this is they need this win.
That
Baylor,
probably solidifies, saves
they
them
are
from
in.
Dayton.
They should be in. By every bracketology stuff I've seen, they are in the field comfortably, which is good. They celebrated this by moving the Auburn football game to Friday. So that was good. Cause for celebration. We're off the bubble, and now we are going to move this game.
We have to explain Juve to Jacob, by the way, because he's probably so confused.
Yeah, we really do. Yeah, these Baylor minutes here have to be explained at some point. But massive for the Bears. The Bears are a huge threat to any 2 seed in the field that they play, which I assume is going to be their seeding here. They're probably going to be on that 7-10 line of things. If they're on the 8-9, man, they better. They probably want to hope for. I don't know who would be their ideal matchup, but I would probably say Houston would be.
None of the 4.
None of them.
Yeah, the answer is none of the above.
They might get to plus 9.5 against Houston if they see them a third or fourth time. So that would be.
But they wouldn't do that because it's a conference game, so they wouldn't put them in the same pod.
That's true. Yeah. So that would be. Yeah. Well, good season if you're on the 8-9, but So. That'll be tough there, but they do have the formula for making a decent tournament run. They have the guards, they have a big man, and they have a coach who's done it before. So the Bears can be a very tough out for someone, but they are going to have to go, probably try to improve their seeding in Big 12 tournament play. It's not going to be. They have Houston coming to Baylor tomorrow, so I would be very surprised / impressed if Baylor were able to cash out with a win there. But can we talk about the location of the Big 12 tournament here and just why are we Vegas really? I don't understand.
Only makes sense for the Arizona schools in Utah.
Yeah, why are we? They had such a good thing in Kansas City, and
do you remember the SEC played in fucking St. Louis the one year?
They had that was something. So hey,
the Big Ten played in fucking DC the one year because that's when
the Big Ten can't
New
make
York.
Fucking mind where they play.
They play. Didn't they play in New York too?
Yeah. Do not talk to me about the Big Ten tournament. They are. They got rid of the pinwheel. I am not in a good place with that.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Why was that necessary? Why did we need to get rid of the pinwheel? Yeah, I used to love the Big Ten tournament. That was an icon, and the pinwheel itself was an icon. I have Evan Turner hitting the half-court shot at the pinwheel to beat Michigan in the Big Ten tournament.
I have a shirt with the pinwheel from the year we went in DC. I bought a shirt with the pinwheel on it.
Yeah,
it's got all
ridiculous.
The schools on
it. Who am I to come after here for? Someone has to pay for the lack of the pinwheel. I need answers. That's unacceptable. That logo needs to come back. Now it looks like some horrible, cheesy, Indy 500 type, we got 2 checkered flags on the logo. What are we doing here? Bring back the pinwheel. Ridiculous.
Hashtag bring back the pinwheel.
Yeah, really.
The 2 other by the way, I just got the box score for the Jokic game you guys were talking about popped up on mine. I need to start betting NBA overs because I don't.
The over in that NBA. Game. Yes, the over in that game was 236.5.
It was 149, 141.
Yeah, that over comfortably hit.
Why am I not betting NBA overs?
There was a game the other night. I think the Pacers and Hawks over was 251.5. And I think that over hit. So That's just crazy stuff. Anytime, like, the Grizzlies always have really high totals. The Knicks can't guard anyone, so they're giving up like 120 points a game routinely. And yeah, Suns Nuggets. That game was like built in a lab, being to go over.
Said always bet the under on Terry Rozier.
Yeah, really. Fair play.
All right. The two other bubble games from Tuesday I was gonna bring up. Arkansas, Vanderbilt. Arkansas, big road win for them. They should be safe, solid. Avoid Dayton now, all that. So that's a big one. And then, oh my God, Trayston Eaglestaff scored 51
I was-
points.
Yes.
I was
yeah.
going to mention that when we
What
got
the
to the conference tournament talk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something.
He-
Okay, Tuesday.
Wow.
So yeah, Arkansas got the road win at Vandy. They should be safe, solid now. Like I said, avoid Dayton. And then a bad one was San Diego State losing at UNLV, getting swept by the Running Rebels. That really put San Diego State in quite the precarious position now. They're trending towards Dayton or being out. I can't remember who they play tomorrow, but they're going to need a win tomorrow and probably avoid disaster in the Mountain West tournament for them. But yeah, obviously, like in a league like that where you run into more landmines, like if you're on the bubble, you got to avoid those because a loss to UNLV is a lot worse than a loss like Indiana took to Oregon. Like that's a second quad three loss for San Diego State now, both to UNLV. So, but yeah, and then also another one bubble result that matters that I didn't mention Tuesday was Georgia going on the road and beating South Carolina. Not really like they just needed to win that one, and like they should be safe now. So yeah, so Tuesday, Georgia safe, Arkansas safe, San Diego State not safe. Anything on those three?
San Diego State better get in. I would be very annoyed. I think that San Diego State has had enough tournament success recently to kind of. I know they're not supposed to do this and give them the benefit of the doubt of previous years, but I would be furious if, like, San Diego State did not get in and Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, who's won 5 games in 2025, gets in the field. I would not accept that. And then, yeah, Arkansas, like, good bounce back, but you couldn't have beaten South Carolina. Like, was it that hard? Like, I was not, my expectations were not high for them going to Vanderbilt, but yeah, credit to them.
Jacob, you got anything on those?
I don't.
All right. Wednesday, 2 big bubble results Wednesday. Xavier went on the road, beat Butler. Xavier is a team I think should be in.
Xavier should be in.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
They're currently in on as the last team in on Lenardi's bracketology.
Yeah. I mean, that just comes down to where you look. And then Oklahoma they got a fucking massive win against Missouri. Like they had to have it. They got it against Missouri, and that I feel like most places, that took Oklahoma from trending out and put them back in. That win over Missouri. That was a big one against Mizzou. There, they needed that one bad. Obviously, Mizzou's a good team. They had that game at home, and they've had a couple games like the last couple weeks where if you change a couple plays, they would be solidly
They'd be in the field,
right
yeah.
now. But yeah, Fears really fucking stepped up in this game. He was awesome. So yeah, those two, Xavier, Oklahoma, those 2 big bubble results for Wednesday. Anything on those two?
For Oklahoma, like, talked about that a lot. Had to have it. Yeah, it's all comes down to them in Texas.
Yeah, that's going to be a fucking big one tomorrow. Jacob, you got anything on either of those two?
I mean, Oklahoma had a big win against Missouri, so I mean, Jeremiah Fears took over in that game.
So, of course, there are some Big Ten people who are like, is this a conspiracy by the SEC having Mississippi State just choke a game to Texas and Missouri just donate a win to Oklahoma and Vanderbilt donate a win to Arkansas, where they're like, this is so the SEC can get more teams in the field. So, yeah, big fan of those conspiracy conversations. Just really, really love them.
Well, two more, and then so there's two more bubble results I wanted to bring up. First one was UC San Diego flirted with a nuclear disaster last night. That probably would have ended their at-large dreams if they lost that one to Long Beach State, and they did their very best to lose it. And then one tonight that was huge. Obviously, how the brackets adjust for this one, but VCU took a home loss to Dayton. So that's a bad one for them to lose at home. Not that Dayton's a bad team, but obviously in the A10, like we said, any loss is crucial. But yeah, those are the last two bubble ones I wanted to bring up. But yeah, UC San Diego avoided that would have ended their at-large case completely if they lost at home to Long Beach State.
Yeah, not good. I was watching that with some friends last night, and some of these people are not familiar with mid-major college basketball, and I really did my best to hype up San Diego and was like, yeah, this team is like, they're going to the Sweet 16 if they get the right matchup type thing, and just watch them here. And I'm kind of just waiting for them to pull away, and then it gets to halftime. And then it gets to 10 minutes and to 8 minutes. I'm like sweating bullets over here, waiting for this team to make me look smart. And yeah, then I had to do all these actually, Long Beach State won this conference a year ago. So let's give them some props, guys. They're 7-23, but yeah, they deserve some respect here, guys. Come on, coach is in his first year. Let's give it some time here. San Diego. So yeah, I really had to change my tone there. But yeah, I'm not out on them. I'm still very, very much in. Still true to if they get the right matchup, they're Sweet 16 team. But yeah, last night was a near catastrophe for them. So thankfully their at-large hopes remain alive. But yeah, that would have taken a fucking battle axe to their chances had they got beaten there. So yeah, still think they'll win the Big West tournament though.
Them or Irvine.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I bet. But speaking of the Big West, my favorite bet the last few weeks has just been betting against Fullerton, whoever. I bet on Cal Poly last night.
Who is not very good.
Yeah, they were minus 14 and they won by 40.
They are horrible, and Fullerton is So that's yeah.
I've not watched Cal Poly play this year. It's they were 12-18, so I don't know.
They're very bad.
They're playing Fullerton. I'm just gonna roll with it, and that was the right call.
Yeah, and they're that would have been shoddy attendance at a high school game for everyone that was in that gym yesterday. So yeah.
Jacob, did you were trying to get in on the UC San Diego thing?
I was gonna say, when you watch as a mid-major fan, occasionally you'll have a great mid-major team, and then out of nowhere they just have an off game, and a freaking what's considered one of the worst teams in the conference has a hot night, and it's gosh dang it,
Well, it's when your whole schedule's just landmines.
Yeah.
It's you're bound to step on one eventually. We see it with Memphis every year.
I know Chattanooga almost lost the dang Citadel, who hasn't won a conference game this year. Citadel almost beat Chattanooga right before the end of this conference slate,
And then the other one I mentioned is VCU Dayton, but big loss for VCU tonight. So, Dayton's a good team, so I'm not sure how much that's going to knock down VCU, but I mean, it's not good. It's not going to help them. They're probably looking at Dayton at best right now if they do get in that large. So,
Yeah, they
on the
should be.
Rams.
I mean, Dayton, I think, was plus 9.5, if I'm not mistaken. They were pretty decent underdogs in that game. So yeah, not a good loss for VCU at all.
But yeah. So yeah, I think I covered all the big bubble results of the week. But yeah, if you guys have anything else, I know conference tournaments were going on this week, so I'm not gonna sit here and run through every single conference tournament result. But if you guys have notable ones that you want to bring up, I'm all for it.
I kind of wanted to talk about, first one I wanted to talk about was the A-Sun tournament. Yeah, there's some interesting
North
games.
Alabama almost fucking locked up a bid last night.
Yeah, that was very close. That was one of the better. That's been one of the better mid-major tournaments thus far.
I was pulling for Queens last
me
night.
too.
Yeah, that would have locked.
I was too.
Which, by the way, what is that rule?
It's the dumbest rule.
perplexed.
It's the
I've always
dumbest
been
rule.
perplexed by it.
Merrimack has dealt with that for the last few years.
That's because Merrimack's the only reason FDU got in.
Yes,
when they beat Purdue.
Merrimack is just they're extremely well coached. Shout out Joe Gallo, is an incredible basketball coach they have there, and yeah, they got absolutely shafted out of being in the NCAA tournament. They get FDU in the field.
It happened to Bellarmine too.
Yeah, I know. I remember that.
It's such a stupid rule. I don't know what the point of the rule is. I don't know what they're
in 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, that's excessive. Like, what are we doing? So, yeah, I don't understand that. I mean, yeah, that makes no sense. I don't know how that helps anyone, but conversation for another day. Yeah, Lipscomb are the best team in that league by a decent sized margin.
Yeah, they can shoot the lights out.
Yeah,
I was watching that Queens game. Queens had them on the ropes for a little bit, and then they just took over once Queens got in foul trouble at the end. Joe Anderson and Jacob Ognasovic. If Lipscomb wins the championship on Sunday, those are names to watch for in March. North Alabama and Jacksonville is a good game too. Although North Alabama took over at the end, Jakari Lane and Robert McRae kind of had a battle there. But that'll be a fun tournament. That'll be one of the funner mid-major conference championships to watch.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Reliance, baby.
Yeah.
North Alabama is seeking their first ever NCAA tournament appearance. So yeah, I will be watching and pulling for North Alabama.
Yeah. We had the Horizon League tournament as well yesterday. Robert Morris got a big win over Wright State yesterday. Wright State was kind of their nemesis in conference play. They had lost by 2 against them, and then they had beat Wright State by 2. Came out, played a really good game, just really dominated. So they will be a team probably anywhere between 14, 13 at best, but probably 14, 15 territory. But they'll be a tough matchup for someone. They're a really well coached team. So yeah, shout out to them for getting that one done there. And then I had quite the high hopes for South Dakota State to win the Summit League until this fucking guy, Tracy Eaglestaff just literally dropped a nuke on South Dakota State.
Remember, he's the same guy that scored 40 against
Alabama. Yeah, Alabama. He's freaking good.
He is incredible. And
he will be on a
he is unbelievably
high
good.
Major roster next year.
He is an incredible scorer.
Oh my!
I mean, they only had 82 points on the game, and he scored 51 of them. So, can South Dakota State, can we put somebody, can we double team the guy? Can we seriously just have anybody else beat us except for this guy? So, yeah, that's an incredible performance. That's the highest point total anyone's had in Division I this year, 51. So,
yeah,
Yeah, big time stuff for him.
Also, need to mention Horizon League. Doug Gottlieb's freshman campaign at Wisconsin Green Bay sadly came to an end at the hands of Greg Campy in Oakland earlier this week.
I know.
Yes, and then Oakland followed that up with beating Milwaukee,
upset in Milwaukee
in the Horizon League.
Yeah. The Horizon had some good games last night.
Yes,
Youngstown State, Purdue Fort Wayne was went down to the wire. Purdue Fort Wayne had a comeback and had a chance to at least tie the game, but just couldn't get it. And Youngstown State ran away with that one. Cleveland State, Northern Kentucky went down to the wire as well. So that'll be interesting to watch those semifinals this weekend.
The Sun Belt started their ridiculous.
That ridiculous bracket.
Shout out to Christian, by the way. The Herd got a big win today. I was watching the end of that one. Big one for the Herd. Also, this wasn't a conference tournament game, but did you guys happen to catch that Northern Illinois Central Michigan game? Double OT.
2 overtime.
Game winner.
Yeah.
Wow.
I saw it.
Oh, Travis John Butchergross is wearing an Auburn sweater talking hockey on SVP. So there you go.
Is he an Auburn guy?
No, he's a Boston area guy, and he's a Pittsburgh Boston guy, I think. But yeah, he's got an Auburn sweater.
Bruce Pearl is a Boston guy.
Yeah,
so
he is very much
to do with that.
And former Milwaukee coach. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, yesterday was the anniversary of him beating Alabama at Milwaukee as a 12 seed.
Yeah.
I know the Ohio Valley Conference. That'll be the first bid tomorrow night. That championship was set tonight. Southeast Missouri State and SIU Edwardsville. So we'll see. That'll be a pretty good game as well. Apparently, there's a rivalry brewing there.
Valparaiso got a big upset over Northern Iowa.
Northern Iowa. I saw that. I was looking at Mid-Major Madness.
Also, like, I had my why the fuck am I watching this? Like, I'm sure we've all had that moment where you're like watching a game and you're like, I was watching what was it? Pepperdine in Portland.
Oh my gosh!
And I was like, why the fuck am I watching this?
That was like San Diego and Pacific yesterday. I was just watching on TV and I was like, what the fuck?
Do you guys remember that Pepperdine Pacific game in the West Coast Conference tournament last year? Where it's like, it was like fucking 40-36 or something.
Yeah.
Like it's the fucking worst game ever. Yeah, no, I love conference tournament week. Yeah. You guys got anything else on those that I haven't hit?
I think that's the championships from Saturday and Sunday. You have the ASUN, the OVC. Obviously, the Big South. I didn't get to go in my spiel about it. It's going to be High Point and UNC Asheville. Winthrop looked pretty good too.
High Point's going to win by 20.
Yeah.
High Point is a wagon. I will be picking High Point when the bracket comes out.
I know the best game so far of that tournament was Radford and Presbyterian. It went to overtime earlier.
Can I add, like, the High Point Gardner Webb line came out last night.
Yeah.
And it came out at like 12.5, and it was at 16.5 by the time the game tipped off.
I mean,
like, insane line movement there. Like, I think High Point was just getting bet to hell. Like, I got High Point at 13.5. Luckily, I was able to hit that one. So
yeah, I need like High Point Bama or
Arizona.
Yeah, someone who will really be willing to push the pace with them.
We're talking about Michigan. Like, I think High Point would have potential to run Michigan.
They could,
the floor.
Kentucky, that would be one that High Point could probably beat.
Definitely.
I saw I saw High Point, Kentucky. Yeah, that's the one I was going to mention. High Point, I would pick that upset over Kentucky.
I'd probably Arizona too. It's just like what Caleb Love would show up for that game. Is it the Caleb Love that's going to drop 40, or is it the Caleb Love that's going to miss everything? Like, that would literally just be like, how's Caleb Love going to shoot it tonight? And that would be like, like High Point's going to come out and just try to fucking. I saw
Light the
Missouri
Nets on
too.
fire. Yeah, they're gonna
I saw Missouri too for High Point. Like that would be
that'd be really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, High Point. I hope High Point takes, which I think they will. But if they take care of business there, they are going to be a fun team to watch first weekend.
Yeah, it'll be fun. I think that's the only championships. I do know I kind of want to mention the SoCon tournament since I'm going to be down there tomorrow. There was an exciting game earlier, Mercer in Western Carolina. Shout out Mercer. I think Mercer's an underrated team for first-year head coach Ryan Ritter. Their record isn't that great, but they have some great guard play.
Shout out to Macon. That's where I used to live out there.
Went down to the wire, 67-66, with like Mercer scored the game-winning bucket with like 4 seconds left in the game. So they'll take on Chat. I hope they upset Chat. That'd be hilarious, to be honest. And then VMI smoked Citadel, of course. But I'll be down there tomorrow. I think those mid-major games that'll be must-watch. Mid-major ball. Furman and Sanford will be a great game tomorrow.
So what's the confidence meter for the Bucks?
I'm extremely
Are the Bucks
confident.
going dancing?
I think so, to be honest.
Crown dancing, CBI dancing,
NCAA tournament. NCAA tournament.
Crown dancing.
The road we have is extremely favorable.
Hey, I saw another Crown commercial earlier. I think they're starting to get an idea of who they're going to have there because, the first highlight they showed on the commercial was Cincinnati.
Nice. Yeah, they know exactly who they want.
Yeah, I think they're starting to get an idea.
Well, first of all, I also don't understand. They're and the Crown will begin on March 31st. I'm like, excuse me?
It's just Adam.
It's March 31st.
Your Elite Eight games with some Crown ball.
It's March 31st to April 6th. What are we doing?
Is it the national championship on April?
Why are
let me look at a calendar. Is it the national championship on April 6th?
I don't know.
The national championship's on April 7th.
Oh my god.
So you get Final Four, you get the Crown Championship, and then you get the National Championship.
What? I just don't. Am I really gonna be in the market for that when that's? I don't know. That's by that point.
This made me think of a funny. So I'm gonna have to tell you this one off the air, but this made me think of something funny.
Yeah, goodness. Well, yeah, just prepare yourself to fill out. I usually fill out a NIT bracket just for shits and gigs every year, but now I'm gonna have to add the Crown bracket to my arsenal. Yeah,
there's a Twitter account I used to see. Every time I see it, I don't follow it. I need to find it and follow it. But it's a guy who just does bracketology for the NIT. He's exclusively an NIT guy. And
such a miserable job. Yeah.
I need to find that fucking account again, but it's hilarious.
That sounds horrible. Yeah.
All right. Tomorrow, anything y'all want to talk about? Looking forward to tomorrow preview. I mean, obviously we'll be back Sunday to talk about the games anyway, but obviously Auburn, Bama, Duke, Carolina. I'll ask this: does Carolina have a chance? Do we think Carolina's got any shot to pull the upset?
Everyone seems to think they do.
Carolina plus 10.
Yeah, I think they'll cover the 10.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But yeah, do
that
they
game's
have any
always
chance
relatively competitive.
But yeah, Auburn, Bama, obviously, that's me. That's fucking everything. I'm probably not going to be able to sleep tonight because, God, I want to win that game so fucking bad and sweep them. So, yeah. I am fucking juiced for that game tomorrow.
Rightly so. Janai Brum's senior day.
Yep. God, I wish I could get a ticket. There's so much fucking money. We just bought Lexington tickets earlier this week, so I'm going to have to sit out that one. But, yeah, it is a pretty penny to get a ticket in Neville, unfortunately. Yeah, I really want to fucking go to that game, but yeah, I'll probably wake up and look at the ticket prices and see if something drops last second. But I'm not expecting to be able to attend. I'll have real FOMO tomorrow. Let's see. Arizona's going to the Fog.
Yeah.
We mentioned Baylor, huge home game against Houston.
Huge. Giants.
Yeah. St. John's Marquette's going to be a good one. Kentucky, Missouri. Yeah. Anything tomorrow you guys want to talk about before we?
Very interested in seeing the Trey Johnson, Jeremiah Fears duel. One of those teams. It's pretty much. Yeah, that one's going to be NCAA tournament or crown territory there. So yeah, there's some decent.
Is the crown above or below the NIT? Like, what's the?
I don't know. So first of all, Fox is the only network that has mentioned the crown. So,
yeah, so it's like, just Big East and Big 12 and Big 10.
Joe Lunardi has not once mentioned like, oh, this team, like, watch out, they could.
Yeah, I was looking it up. So yeah, it's just Big East, Big 10, Big 12. Like, there's no SEC or ACC teams going there because obviously ESPN.
Well, yeah, Greg Sankey probably was like hung up the phone. He's like, this is the dumbest thing we have ever heard. Like, we are not participating.
Hey, I saw a tweet earlier, by the way.
In our conference will be playing in the NCAA tournament anyway.
I saw a tweet earlier that, by the way, it's like CBI is looking absolutely loaded this year. I was like, what could this possibly be?
Yeah, like Montverde Academy join. Oh, yeah. Speaking of, that's very big news going on in the high school basketball world. Kevin Boyle leaving Montverde Academy for Spire Institute, Spire Academy in Ohio. That's big time coaching news. Kevin Boyle was the premier high school program at Montverde. He had a lot of relationships when it came to recruiting. Their starting five last year, I think that was the best starting five I've ever heard in my life for a high school team. Pretty sure they, I'm trying to think who all was in there. That was like Rob Wright was the point guard. They had Liam McNeely, Cooper Flagg, Asa Newell, and Derek Queen that was the starting five. So that team probably would have won a national championship this year if that was a roster. But yeah, big news there. So Montverde needs a new coach.
That made me think. I was talking to somebody about this last week, and I was like, I want to see if either of you two remember what the fuck I'm talking about. But so there was it Zion and Lonzo playing each other when they played like the game that got streamed on like YouTube and Twitter, and there were like 10 million.
That was Zion and LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo, okay. So I was talking to somebody about it, and I was like, yeah, they streamed it on YouTube, and there were like 20 million people watching a fucking high school basketball game.
Yeah, that was LaMelo and Zion. That was back when like those were both like the YouTube worlds collided, and that was
ball is life era.
Pretty much, yeah. That was LaMelo at the time was the most like popular high school athlete of all time.
Hey, shout out to LeVar, by the way.
Old peg leg.
At least he only has to buy one shoe now.
Dale from The Walking Dead.
Wow.
Yeah. Well,
Herschel in the show.
Well, we'll be back Sunday. I'm already game planning. When everything's finalized, I'm gonna get the whole list of conference tournaments next week. Like I know some of them are already in but everyone that's starting next week and ending next week, I'm gonna get the whole list. I'm gonna send them to Jacob. So then, and we can just go one by one on the list, and Jacob can screen share them, and we can make our picks and give underdogs in those tournaments. I'm thinking that Sunday. That sounds like a fun Sunday night.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, if that sounds good to you guys, I think that will be in the plans. So
Sounds good to me.
good thumbs up. You don't get the bubble like I do. Like I bet it's gonna it's been coming up with like the bubbles for me. I don't know how the fuck that happens, but appreciate you, Noah, for tuning in. Thank you. But yeah, we'll be back Sunday night, and Sunday night we will be 1 week away. Boys, we're gonna have a bracket in 8 nights.
Yeah,
Has
that's
that set
crazy.
in yet?
It's crazy.
We're so close.
Yeah.
Yeah, we bought our Lexington tickets earlier this week for the first and second round. I have tickets to all 3 sessions in Lexington. I'll be there from Thursday and leaving Sunday.
Nice.
Matt, I don't think there's any way Purdue's going to go there, by the way. But so Jacob, you'll probably be out. But Matt, if UConn gets sent there somehow, I need you to come. Like,
if Baylor does as well, that's like that has to be attended. Yeah.
I don't know if there's a chance of ETSU going. I could roll up. Well,
so it's probably going to be 2 because it's going to be Auburn. And then whoever the 8-9 in Auburn's region is, and then it's going to be either Tennessee or Alabama, and whoever the other 2 in those.
Okay.
Because it's all based off like geographical preference.
Yeah.
That's why I don't know. ETSU would probably be like a 13 or 14,
13.
Right?
Yeah, 14 line.
So I don't think they would go there because it'd probably be like a 15 or 16.
I looked at the SoCon and it was like Milwaukee right now. They had Chat playing Wisconsin.
So if ETSU's dancing, are you going wherever they're playing?
Not wherever, but if it's like maybe if it's decently close.
Is Milwaukee too far?
Probably. I'd probably just do it.
Dude, we fucking did this Spokane last year. That was bullshit. We won the SEC tournament and got rewarded with a trip to fucking Spokane 3 days later.
I thoroughly enjoyed going to Indy last year. The only thing that sucked was like the previous session hadn't let out yet, and there's like 2,000 Purdue fans all descended right into Gamebridge Fieldhouse. And
dude, that's why
everybody wasn't in there for like the first like 5 minutes of the game.
That's for Lexington. I just bought all 3 sessions. That way, like, we don't have to worry about like which one's Auburn gonna get. Like, since the teams haven't got assigned there and the tickets are still normal price, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to fucking all 6 games in Lexington. Yeah, it'll be a fun weekend. Auburn will have their fierce contest against looking like Bucknell or Southern on Thursdays.
A-Rod might go support Bucknell after hitting the half-court shot there last week.
Oh, shit. All right. Well, we're going to call it a show, and we'll be back Sunday night. Make sure you like, subscribe, tune in. Thanks, everybody watching, and we'll be back Sunday night to make some conference tournament picks.
Y'all have a good night.